No, you. Let's see. Put Jason serious. You don't know why.
Sharon, just a second. Should go large and then it's live streaming now, but if you are not going to show this. Then what I'll do is I'll just wait to share it.
Well, I want to show the first couple and then I don't. Then I want to go to the meeting.
Okay, yeah, so all we'll have to do is when you're ready, just hit stop sharing, it'll show the room and then we'll just
Okay,
start.
so it's sharing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what is being viewed on the live stream.
Cool.
So people see that, they'll see a little,
Like a little box like that.
yeah, they'll see the room. And then you should be able to just talk. Yep.
Okay, there it goes. Right. Yeah, that's.
All right. And then I'll just confirm. Actually. Don't be right, but I thought it was her street.
Stop sharing and to be view this. Okay. Right here. This is.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes. Thanks.
You should. Nice to meet you. Somebody. Like, Derek.
You just.
And here we are.
Take my kids. Unless you talk for a full hour without moving anything, you should be good.
You.
No. Prefer not. And you said he might be a little delayed.
Well, the first part. Oh.
Live stream lovely, so we'll go back and take notes later. Like, are we writing our emotions down? Just like that happy, bad. Gonna have to do some bad. We're doing a time test. Those are my favorite.
No downstairs place. Yeah, tell John. Just get him wild. I'm getting wired up right now.
Yeah.
Should we? Stop. Let's do this. Stop. Okay, then how do I start sharing?
Just up at the top. Take it at the bottom.
Share. Well, if when we're watching it. Yeah. What's next? Oh, it's zoomed in, so. Can we?
Yeah, if you want to zoom out at all, you just on the
This one?
camera controls.
Negative?
Yeah.
Oh. I know this meeting board app is talking about how HDTV. It's just a, yeah. New actors, they're all prepared for it and everything. Sharing.
My watch has got 4:01, so we will move forward. We're going to call to order the August 5th, 2025 Appropriations Committee meeting. You've got two topics on the table today, both of which will be addressed by the auditor and Ginger from the auditor's office. We've got the investment policy and also our mid-year budget review. And I believe, Jim, you're going to start with the investment policy. Is that correct?
Sure.
All right. And with that, unless anybody else has anything to bring to the table prior committee, we'll move forward.
Well, welcome everybody, and really grateful to see some new faces in the room and folks who are running for office. The way this is broken down, we're going to address the investment issue first. That should take, give or take, about 40 minutes at the most, I would think, and then we'll roll right into the mid-year review. Part of this process, though, and part of the importance of this process, and why I'm really grateful that we get a chance to do this, is when we do our review with the Moody's or Standard & Poor's for our bond rating, a portion of that is how we handle not only the management of the finances, but how that information is conveyed to the legislative authority. So this is one and a very important touch point that I have with council to get financial information out from a general perspective and make sure the legislative authority is informed. And it goes and improves our scoring when we are being reviewed, or in the future, if we would issue debt, we would have that debt rated. So this is an important part of what we do. But with that, what I'd like to do, and you guys will have to bear with me 1 second, because I'm going to share, and then I'm going to, so which one? I share this one, right? Here we go. Let's see what happens. I have to hit it twice.
Yeah, and then just.
Shit, and then hit share again. For all of you playing along at home, we'll do the best that we can do.
Okay.
There we go. So what I want to do when we're talking about the investments, and then I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Auditor Sampson, is I want to frame this in a way it should be framed as we're moving forward. And that is, the best way that I can do that is by using a benchmark. So the city has $101 million in investments. The investments are doing extremely well. When compared to Hancock County's third-party advised $95 million portfolio, the county's weighted yield is 3.67% before fees of $8,000 a month, so roughly $100,000, give or take. The city auditor managed $101 million portfolio. Weighted yield is 3.8% with no fees. So that being said, the statement that the city's losing a large amount of investment money or revenue is incorrect. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move forward. With that in mind, if we can get this to move forward.
Down.
Down.
Or side.
Side.
Oh, my computer so.
I hope not. Go ahead, Ginger.
We're just trying hitting the space button.
No. We just want to advance one slide. And I'm going to turn it over to the deputy auditor. There we go.
No,
Well, it's her computer.
I clicked on the screen and then went, so I think it just went.
So let's keep on. Two things I want to say at once. So keep in mind as we move forward, we're doing very good. We're in good shape. There isn't an issue with regard to the return that we're getting. That doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement or some other things, and we'll talk about that. And as the deputy auditor goes through this is complicated, it's dry, and it's lengthy. Again, we're going to take about 30, 40 minutes here, but I'll ask that you hold your comments to the end of Ginger's presentation so she can get through the information she wants to share with you. With that, Ginger, please go ahead.
I am going to remain seated. For those of you in the room that do not know me, my name is Ginger Sampson. I'm Deputy Auditor. I've been with the city for more than 30 years. I was appointed by City Auditor Janet Wolfser in March of 1995. I am a licensed CPA, and I highly hold that license very near and dear to me. I work my rear end off for it. I am not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize my license. So I'm also somewhat old school in this. I tried to put together a PowerPoint. It wasn't possible. I was trying to put down my notes as to what I need to do. So it's going to be more of a speech process than anything. So if you would please, like Jim asked, please hold your comments or questions until the end. I might probably actually answer some of your questions. However, In light of that, if any of you need paper or pencil to write down any comments, questions, concerns throughout the whole process, I've brought paper with me.
Would anybody like a piece of paper like that?
Okay, so. The first, I do have only one PowerPoint screen, that's it. That's this one up here, and it tells you. The city auditor gets quotes from multiple brokers for an investment that he would like to have mature in late August 2026. The best quote comes for a US Treasury with a coupon rate of 3.75%, a yield to maturity of 4.05%, at a price of $99.20, with a principal investment of $996,250, with a par value of $1 million. Maturing August 31st, 2026, and will settle May 21st, 2025. The first coupon payment date has passed, which would have been February. We had to pay for the accrued interest, which is from February 28th to May 21st, of $8,355.98 at purchase, which we will receive back on the next coupon payment cycle, which is August 31st, 2025. I'm gonna gander that the majority of you in this room probably have no idea really what all this says. I do, and I'm gonna get to the point of explaining that, but you have to understand that this is complicated. This isn't easy. So I've also brought props with me, so you guys can look at it if you need to or whatever. So although I have 6 pages of documents here, and it's gonna sound like it's gonna be a very long education of the cash and investment process, I've abbreviated it as much as possible to give you a very basic understanding, and I do mean basic. This is not meant to, nor does it cover all the aspects regarding the handling and decisions of the cash and investments. And this education will not make you an expert in municipal investments either. So part of the history. You have to understand the history where we're coming from. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Cuyahoga County took advantage of certain provisions in the Uniform Depository Act and initially earned great returns on their investments. Cuyahoga County then decided to expand the program to include other governmental entities, creating the SAFE program. SAFE was the acronym SAFE. They invested the money into repurchase agreements and reverse repurchase agreements. The strategy worked great until 1993, when the Federal Reserve raised interest rates to slow inflation. This caused an adverse effect on the bond market and the beginning of the SAFE program's demise. Long story, very drastically abbreviated. Hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money, principal, not interest, was lost for many government entities. As a result of Cuyahoga County's SAFE program failure, Senate Bill 81 went into effect September 24th, 1996, and it modified the investment authority of all local governments, requiring local governments to file investment policies with the auditor of state, prescribing mandatory training for certain local government officials that were dealing with investments. Prior to this date, so prior to the history of the SAFE program, City Auditor Janet Wolfser had hired Productive Portfolios as an investment advisor. When Senate Bill 81 went into effect, Productive Portfolios assisted City Auditor Janet Wolfser in drafting the investment policy according to the statute requirements. During the economic downturn in 2008, City Auditor Robert Sprague, and a cost-saving move for the city, severed ties with Productive Portfolios, as well as other paid advisors, and took on all the investment purchasing within the portfolio himself. City Auditor Jim Stashak further enhanced the safety of the investment portfolio in 2012 by hiring a third-party custodian, also known as a delivery versus payment or DVP process. So, the investment policy itself, how was it created? The policy did not have to be adopted via legislation and council. It was a decision made by City Auditor Janet Wolfser and Law Director David Hackenberg to have a simple resolution formalizing the document. And just so that you have notation of it, it was under Resolution 54, 1996. The heading of the resolution says, a resolution adopting the city auditor's written investment policy presented to council. The investment policy was intentionally written to be broad, to allow the city to invest in anything authorized by ORC Section 135.14 at any point in time, with one major exception. It was very deliberate to limit the city of Findlay's investments to 2 years rather than 5 years as allowed in the statute, and to not have the weighted maturity exceed 1 year. There are several reasons for this. By Ohio law, any investment must be purchased with the intent to hold until maturity. The city operations are heavily dependent on cash flows. In other words, cash must be flowing in daily to cover the cash that must flow out daily. If the city has a cash crisis, where cash does not come in at the same rate as the cash going out at any given time, and all or most of the money is tied up in investments, then the city would be breaking the law to sell an investment prematurely in order to be able to cover the cash flow shortage. Really important for you to know. If after purchasing an investment, the market price goes up or better yields might be available, the city cannot, by law, sell investments in our portfolio in order to purchase an investment with a higher coupon rate and or yield. What we purchase is what we are stuck with until maturity, or if for some reason the investment is a callable investment and is called by the issuer. Even with well-intended budget projections, there is no one that can 100% predict what the cash flow needs of the city will be beyond 2 years. No one can predict if something drastic will occur that will have an impact on the city's tax base, such as a closure or transfer of a major employer, a pandemic, a national economic crisis, or whatever. Remember, our tax base is where our large majority of the cash inflows come from, in addition to utility bill receipts. On the expenditure side, no one can predict if there's going to be a catastrophic infrastructure failure, a natural disaster, a costly state or federal mandate, a war, or in a perfect storm, so to speak, of several of these expenditures coupled with reduction of inflows where the city needs cash. The original design of the investment policy was intentional so that the policy would not have to be rewritten over and over again. For example, since it's been rewritten, ORC has been changed so that the city could invest in commercial paper. The city can also invest in bankers' acceptances. We didn't have to rewrite the policy in order to be able to do that because it's broad. It allows us to do whatever the ORC states. So to address the reporting and transparency concerns. So since prior to 1995, when I started, the city has always received a monthly report of the city's investments that includes the principal amount, the investment description, the coupon rate, and the bank or firm name. I know that because I had to create those in 1995. I couldn't find one from 1995, but I have one from 2004. Pretty much looks the same way. Has the same exact information, it's just as transparent. Reports with information regarding cash balances in each fund, as well as revenue and expense information of departments, cost centers, have also always been provided. The information to council has been modified over the years to be more easily readable or to provide clarity, but it has always been transparent as to where the city's cash and investments are held at the close of each month. The cash and investments are presented in a pooled cash format, but the breakdown of the overall cash and investments has always been given to council. This is how the city's accounting works. So there's been questions regarding accountability and auditing. The city of Findlay is a government, not a corporation or a nonprofit. The city has stricter laws and processes that must be followed when it comes to investing. The auditor was designated as the investment manager based upon the full-time nature of the position and the responsibility for cash balances, the unappropriated balances, revenues, expenditures, receipts, and expenses, and yes, those are different, payroll, accounts payable, debt payments, cash flows in general, and all topics regarding accounting for money. Monitoring cash flow is a daily process of the auditor's office, and as such, the city auditor is also bonded. He has personal liability. That liability extends to all the employees of the auditor's office. This includes a daily reconciliation of all the credits and debits in the bank accounts, and a daily decision of moving money in or out of the city's main operating account to the payroll account or other bank accounts or elsewhere. By approximately 9 a.m. each morning, this reconciliation and the determination for cash needs has to be completed. To comply with the law, the city auditor and his designee must also meet annual training requirements of the state treasurer's office to maintain the investments. Additionally, in order to purchase certain types of investments, additional training and certification through the state treasurer's office is required, such as those bankers' acceptances, commercial paper that I was talking about. Proof of the completed training must be presented annually during the audit. So this is my pile of all of my certifications. This is Jim's pile. With each new broker or bank that works with our investments, they must sign a certification that they have received, read, understand, and will abide by the investment policy of the city. The current investment policy is on file with the state auditor's office as required by law. When the annual audit is being done, all investments are reviewed for compliance with the policy and ORC. Any new certification forms from brokers or banks are also examined annually. Also, maturities during the year are evaluated to ensure that there was not any selling before stated maturity dates. So there's been questions also about the investment strategy. So in the state of Ohio, local governments are to prioritize investments in this order. Number one, protecting principal. This is the primary objective. Keep the money safe. Number two, ensure liquidity. Portfolios must be sufficiently liquid to meet the operating expenses and cash flow needs at all times. Three, enhancing yield. Safety and liquidity come first. Then the investment portfolio is designed to achieve a market rate of return, considering the investment policy and cash flows in and out. When decisions to purchase investments are made, brokers from various banks or firms are contacted to get quotes for specific maturity dates to see the best yield for the amount of the amount and the investment vehicle options available, such as U.S. Treasuries, U.S. agencies, commercial paper, certificates of deposit, etc. These quotes include Bloomberg information to validate investment types. When these quotes are received, there is a very short window, sometimes an hour or less, to act on a decision to make the purchase. Currently, this is being done by the city auditor, not an investment advisor. When the city did have an investment advisor, as I spoke of, Productive Portfolios, the investment advisor did not have the power to make investment decisions. A decision was made by the city auditor to make a purchase with a maturity timeframe in mind. The investment advisor reached out to their contacts to get quotes on investment options. The investment advisor reported back to the city auditor with at least 3 quotes, and after a discussion with the city auditor, a decision would be made for a purchase. The investment advisor would contact the winning broker, send the details of the wire instructions to the city for settlement, and the purchase would be executed. When an investment maturity would be occurring, or in the instance of an investment being called by the issuer, the investment advisor would call the city auditor, ask if we needed the cash, or if he should shop around for a replacement investment. Never was the investment advisor ever given control of the portfolio or the final investment decisions, nor should they ever be. So, to kind of give you investment explanations in general. When the city of Findlay purchases investments, the city will always get the principal of the investment back. The city will get a quote on a coupon rate and yield to maturity based upon the par value of the security. So, going back to what I have on the screen over here. The discussion of this is, so we're purchasing, the city auditor gets the quotes. We purchased something with a coupon rate of 3.75 and yield maturity of 4.05 at a price of $99.20. That price ends up being a principal investment of $996,250, but it has a par value of $1 million. That means that at the first coupon payment on this investment, the city is going to receive interest of $18,750 based upon a coupon rate of 3.75%. But since we had to pay for accrued interest of $8,355.98, interest income will only be recognized for $10,394.02 because we had to prepay for that accrued interest. The next coupon payment on February 28th, 2026 will be recognized for the full amount of the interest income. When this investment matures, the city will receive the par value of $1 million plus interest calculated at 3.75%. However, since the investment was purchased at a discount in this particular case, the difference between the par value and the principal, which is $3,750, is also recognized as interest. This means that it's yielding more interest than the stated coupon rate over the life of the investment in our portfolio. This is just one example. Sometimes there are cases that it makes sense to purchase an investment at a premium, meaning that we are paying slightly more than the par value, which is usually $1 million, but sometimes it can be $1.5 million or $2 million. But again, we will get back all the invested principal, which includes the premium, and we will still get the interest on top of that. Now notice, regardless of what the market value of the investment is at any point in time after purchasing the investment, the city is receiving all of its invested principal. The prepaid accrued interest investment as well, and the interest that it's due. There is no loss ever. The risk is on the back of the US government, and if the US government doesn't pay, then I think we have much bigger things to be worried about than what our investments are. There is no ROI, or return on investment calculation, since these are not marked to market prices or even considered at any point during the investment process. ROI implies that there could be a loss or a gain based upon a fluctuating market. We don't calculate gains or losses on a daily basis, nor do we have a need to, since the principal invested will return plus the stated interest. Remember, only after security of the principal and liquidity issues should the focus be on the yielded interest. And even with all the training that we also go through with the state treasurer's office, there is never a discussion about ROI. So the accounting. The amount shown as accrued interest investment on the monthly council report of the cash and investments represents any accrued investment interest the city had to pay when purchasing the investment. That is the number that you see on the bottom of your thing in here that says accrued interest investment. This amount does not represent the accrued interest receivable on the entire portfolio. The accrued interest receivable does not impact a cash balance until it is actual interest received as income. What is reported on the council report is cash, not accrual entries. When interest is received, it's posted according to city ordinance, state laws, and government accounting principles. Interest earned on investments for the self-insurance fund, private trust fund, and cemetery trust fund must be posted to those respective funds. That's part of government accounting principles. All other interest earned must first be prorated based upon certain cash balances and the pooled investments. The resulting interest distribution is posted to the water fund, sewer fund, SCM&R fund, SCM&R highways fund, and then the balance of the proration goes to the general fund. This is by city ordinance and by state laws. This interest distribution can fluctuate greatly based upon the ending cash balances in those funds every month. In other words, in recent months, general fund has only been receiving an interest distribution of about 61 to 63% of the total interest received. If the cash balances of the water fund and sewer fund both increase and everything else were to remain the same, general fund will get even less of the prorated distribution. So to start to summarize this, there have been several stretches of time over my 30+ year career where we did not have enough cash flow to be able to cover debt, payroll, and accounts payable checks. The Great Recession is an obvious example, but this has occurred on other occasions much less drastic. Debt always has to be paid first, then payroll. For accounts payable, the city strives to pay our vendors well before the due date of the invoices. But in those instances where we did not have enough cash flow available, I had to decide what invoices we had to pay and when. But also keep in mind, we're not allowed by law to pay late fees. It makes things a little difficult. Managing cash flow and investments is not an easy task and requires more than just the city auditor, but it is not something that an investment advisor is able to assist with. We're talking about cash flow. In order to manage cash flows in the most efficient way possible, the auditor's office needs more information. The auditor's office already knows when the debt payments and payrolls are being paid out and approximately how much those are. We know about how much and when big invoices such as our electricity, our fuel bills, our insurance renewals, and other routine bills are supposed to be paid. We already have a general idea about how much and when certain inflows are coming, such as utility billing due dates, quarterly tax dates, withholding dates, etc. However, any change in those due dates or billing processes impact those cash flows. And I can tell you, these types of changes have been made without making us aware. One of the big items that we're missing the details of the big outflows of payments to contractors for projects. Although it cannot be an exact science, the engineering department should be able to know approximately how much of a project should be completed at certain points in time over the life of the project. If we knew that $3 million of contractors' payments would be likely to be paid in July, or that $5 million will likely be paid in December, we would be able to better ladder a portfolio so that maturities will be occurring on investments when we need the cash. As it currently stands, it's a guessing game to determine those high cash outflows. For example, December isn't usually a high cash outflow outside of debt and payroll. However, December of last year, I had to pull $6 million quickly from the savings account to cover invoices that we had not anticipated to be quite that big. Part of that dealt with at least one very large contractor's payment, in addition to a large tax refund, as well as some other unanticipated items. If we had had all of our cash invested, we would have had a major problem. Liquidity can only be managed based upon the information that is given to the auditor's office. The information about contractors' payments used to be given to the auditor's office, but with changes in mayoral administrations and city engineers, that practice has since disappeared. Part of this is because there is a general lack of understanding of the difference between cash balances, cash flow, appropriations, and unappropriated balances. Government accounting is not easy. It can be confusing because it's not the same as private or corporate accounting. The city auditor has always been open to the idea of rehiring an investment advisor when the time is appropriate, but there are some things to consider. An investment advisor cannot control the investments. That is a function of the city auditor. A municipal advisor, such as Bradley Payne or Andrew Brossart, is not an investment advisor. A municipal advisor is for helping develop debt structure or advise on ways to help pay for infrastructure or capital needs. Municipal advisors do not have any of the same functions as an investment advisor. In the state of Ohio, for a government entity to hire an investment advisor, the investment advisor must be registered with the SEC and possess public funds management experience, specifically in the area of state and local government investment portfolios, or as an eligible institution mentioned under ORC section 13503, which is basically banks. Currently, we believe there are only 3 or 4 in the state that have these qualifications. These are not the same types of firms that you and I might contact for our personal investments in a 401k, 457 IRA. It's not an Edward Jones. It's not a some of these other ones you see advertised on TV. These are different. They do not work for free. Fees are usually based on the portfolio size. The city auditor recently spoke to the county treasurer, who currently does use an investment advisor. The county's current weighted average yield on a similar size portfolio is 3.67%. The city's at the same point in time is about 3.8%. However, the county's weighted average to maturity is also 2.15 years, because they can invest up to 5 years. And the city's weighted average must be less than 1 year. The county is paying for fees for an advisor, the city is not, but the average yields are comparable. To reiterate, this was not meant to, nor does it cover all of the aspects regarding the handling and decisions of the cash and investments. There are other very lengthy topics that impact decisions such as compensating balances, fees, collateralization requirements, OPCS, depository agreements, diversification, individual banking security, physical bank locations, technology capabilities, domicility, ACH processes, electronic payment processes in and out, secondary authorizations, fraud risk, third-party custodians, and the list goes on and on. So in closing, please keep in mind that just because you don't understand something, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It simply means you don't understand it, and that's okay. But sometimes the explanation really is not simple, and it can be difficult to give a simple explanation.
Ginger?
So that being said, I would like to wrap up Ginger's comments with really 4 main points. And part of the purpose of this is to get us to the point where we understand we're addressing the issue at hand. First is, as Ginger said, and I've already told you, our $101 million investments are doing extremely well. And as compared to the county's weighted 3.67% return or yield, excuse me, not return, before they pay their fees, we're getting 3.8. So we're doing very well when you compare us against the benchmark of the local county with, again, $95 million. And interestingly enough, they're holding $27 million in cash on the 95 million. So they're carrying the same amount of cash as we are. Second, the management of the city's money is a daily function. $20 million plus is not just sitting there. It is being paid out daily. It is revolving. That money, we are revolving through that money. And it's for multiple funds. It's not $20 million general fund money. It's water fund money. It's sewer fund money. It's municipal court money. It's general fund money. So the monies we are using has to be able to be available for whatever particular fund has the need for the expenses that are at hand. Of that, as much as $5 million has been paid out in a single day. We have to have access to that money. Finley has a $130 million expense budget. That's an average of $11 million per month, and it's spent in various ways. Proper cash balances must be kept. The city auditor and staff are highly trained in these financial matters with decades of experience, and we have a proven track record. And I think Jenny's done a wonderful job illustrating her knowledge in this area. She's phenomenal, and we're blessed to have her. The primary key to improving a return on the city's deposit is communication regarding the administration's cash flow needs on a week-by-week basis, not overloading Star Ohio, which already has 55 million of our money. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. The banks collateralize our cash at 102%. Every dollar in the bank is backed by $1.02. We have zero risk with those banks. And U.S. Treasury investments are backed by the U.S. government. The auditor's office needs payment information specifically for capital projects and unbudgeted expenditures. In the past, this information was regularly provided, and I've asked for it repeatedly over the last several years, and we're not getting it, as Ginger talked about. And lastly, the question of lost interest regarding our demand deposit account that's being referred to as a savings account has not even taken into consideration the cost factors and service fees that have been reduced against the rate. Myself, Ginger, my office have been very intentional about working to keep our bank fees as low as possible. If the governing board next year wants to increase the rate on the account, on the demand deposit account that we have, then they are going to see a significant corresponding increase on the fees for every banking service necessary to operate this city. Your next opportunity to review the bank depository agreements is next year, 90 days before the expiration of the agreements. Obviously, review that as well. So I guess at this point, yeah, if anybody has any questions regarding the interest, we're happy to talk about it.
Any questions from the committee first? Anybody else? Dan?
So, well, first of all, thank you for the information. I think we've been asking for this for a while. It seems like when we talk about budgets, everybody's very open in talking about it. When we talk about investments, everybody gets angry. So I appreciate, and you're very knowledgeable about this, and thank you. I know you put a lot of effort into this, and I appreciate that. So let's just talk about Star Ohio for a second. So here's my understanding of Star Ohio. It's a depository run by the state treasurer, Robert Sprague. They've got, if you look at their investments, it goes on for 55 pages. It's 38, it's like 2,070 different deposits, all Ohio Revised Code, all backed, insured, and collateralized. And it's very safe, it's very broad, it's very diverse, right? So they're paying roughly, 4.5%. I went through the calculation. I agree with you that we are at like a 3.8%. So compare that, the 3.8% to Star Ohio, which is a pretty good indicator of where the market's at, you know? So the difference is 0.6%, which doesn't sound like a lot until you multiply it by $27 million, and it's $650,000 a year. In the last year, it was $1 million. Year before that, it was $1 million, right? It's a significant differential. So, the nice thing about Star Ohio, it's like, they have a 2 p.m. shut-off. If you make your deposit or your withdrawal before 2 p.m., you get it same day. If it's after 2 p.m., it goes overnight. So it's very little. You've already got 27. So in terms of you're talking about the savings account, you're using demand deposit account. I don't know, when on all of your financial reports, you refer to it as a savings account, but either way. So why doesn't Star Ohio act the same way as the savings account? Why not put the money in Star Ohio and make the 600 grand per year? That's what I've been asking for a year, Jim. I mean, I asked you this.
That's your question, Dan.
So here's my question. So it's been out there for a year. Why don't we put that money in Star Ohio or some other alternative?
So with all of the, again, Jim mentioned that you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Star Ohio was safe. I will say that. However, if we put all of our money in Star Ohio, there have been times that after 2 p.m., I've realized that we need money because we're getting ready to do a check run or something comes about right away. I don't have the ability then to pull that money. On top of which, and get it the same day, on top of which, we have all sorts of problems in the world with software. If all of our money is at Star Ohio, and all of a sudden something happens and they have a software glitch and we can't get to it, I can't cash in investments. Where am I gonna get the money from?
And your point, it's a good question, because you look at it, and again, go back to what I shared earlier. We have $55 million out of $101 million in Star Ohio. More than half of our money is in Star Ohio. The other interesting thing, and I agree, it's a good program. I mean, the state treasurer, there used to be something called Star Plus. I intentionally pulled us out of Star Plus because Star Plus was invested in 60% commercial paper. And there were some other concerns that I had based on some meetings I had attended. And shortly thereafter, the state treasurer closed the program because he recognized the issues as well. So in looking at Star, there's another issue too we have to be aware of. Again, I mentioned accessibility, spreading the investments over a reasonable amount, making sure we obtain a proper and reasonable return, protecting the number one thing we're supposed to do is protect the principal and protect liquidity. That's access to principal. And also keep in mind, when I said the banks and the US Treasuries were collateralized 102% at the banks, we have the US Treasuries backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. If there is a financial glitch in Star Ohio, there is no collateralization promise to the governmental entities that are invested in it. The state as the beneficiary first and foremost, and there is no provision that we are guaranteed 100% of our money back should there be an issue. And in the world we're in today, with the fraud and the things that are happening with the electronic theft of monies, I would think if something happened, we would ultimately get our money. But what do we do if we have 75% of our funds tied up in one, or let's say 65%? 55% is reasonable, it's fair, it works, and it allows us to balance and again obtain a return that's every bit as competitive as a professionally managed portfolio that the county has is getting.
So Star Ohio is one example. There's lots of other ways, you know, and actually I did an analysis. If you take the Star Ohio out and you take the savings out and you look at all the other, you have 23 investments. And the first three are first four Star Ohio, the fifth one's the fifth there. So, you know, so you've got another 18 or whatever that adds up to, you know, and the return on those 18, you're doing a great job, but Jim, your return on those is 4.6%. It's higher than
That's
Star
not the
Ohio.
return. That is the stated coupon rate. That's not necessarily the return, or is the yield.
It's not the yield.
Yeah, look at are you looking at?
I look at the yield. Yes, I'm
You're
looking
saying
at the yield.
return. That's not the same
Well,
thing.
okay, sorry, yield, okay. So if you look at the return, the yield, it's 4.68. 4.6, it's higher than Star Ohio. I mean, you're doing a great job with that. But I just don't understand this much money in the savings account. That has been my issue all along. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's too conservative. It's costing us, the lost opportunity cost is too high. So 5 million, some number, and instead of Star Ohio, can't you go to Fifth Third Bank and get a series of collateralized CDs that come mature every month? I mean, and if you have a daily crisis, shame on us. We need to do a better job communicating so that we're not doing this on a daily, and that you need the cash overnight, but certainly weekly. I mean, I just think.
Question, Dan. Or are you just making my statement?
Well, I'm making a statement. I just think there's alternative ways to improve our return. I guess is my statement. Even if it was leave 5 million in the savings and invest the rest. And there's alternative ways to it. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be Star Ohio. You're doing a great job on all of the other ones.
So I appreciate the comments. And what I would say, and I never expected to have this much seniority and experience with the city's finances. And I'm grateful and appreciative of the opportunity to do that. But one thing I've learned in city is there are a number of different ways to get to a solution. What we do know is we know the answer that we get, 3.8%, the yield is a good one. We've also said here, there is a way to improve, but it's going to take communication from the administrative side to help us understand and know when the demands on our cash is going to be. Ginger's done a good job illustrating that we're making a request. When we know, when we can count on that we're not going to need more than 2 months reserve in our DDA account, whether it be Fifth Third or wherever that money is held, then at that point, we'd be able to get a little bit more return.
You
out of
keep
the
that
portfolio.
2 month reserve. Is that what you're telling us?
Well, if you look at, it's the common sense, it's a generality. It's $130 million expense budget. We're keeping a little over 20 million. Your expenses are averaging 11 million a month. That's 22 million.
Fair.
So in your home, and I don't mean to compare the city finances to your home, but everybody has a savings and a checking account. And what you pay your bills out of your checking account, some people have money markets and they move money into their checking account and they pay their bills. And why do banks not pay interest on their checking accounts? Because it's the one you need the most, and it's the one that has the revolving balances, the largest revolving balances. But we have to be able to pay the bills. So we have to be in a position where we know how much we need to pay bills, and we're not in that position completely. Again, Ginger said, when our debt payments are, we know when pay bills. We don't know when millions of dollars are going to go out the door and paying an engineer, a contractor doing an engineering project. We need that information. We get that information, we could probably, at that point in time, address 60 to 70% of your concern with improving the return. But there's always going to be discretion, and there's always going to be need to keep a buffer in the cash, just like you do in your home. 20 million is only large if you look at it from your own perspective. From $100 million perspective, and from the amount of money we're running to the city day in and day out, and the number of funds we're managing, it's not that big of it's 20% of the entire budget. 1/5.
When you look at the, on that letter that I sent. When you look at the cash balance and the savings accounts, month after month, it doesn't change much. I mean, it's a couple million here and there. It doesn't, maybe there's a lot more to go, but the month end numbers, there's not variability to it. I mean, it never goes below 25, 22 million. I mean, never goes below 20 million.
You'll see it at the end of August.
Pardon?
We'll see it go below that at the end of August.
Yeah, and
So
I think you're
what's
missing the
your-
point between cash flow. Again, that's a revolving account. Money's coming in, money's going out. The day
Into
we
the
pay,
savings.
the day we pay the bill, the money has to be accessible to you. Period.
I understand.
That's why the money's there, and it's reasonable. And it's necessary to the business of the city. And when we have more information, we'll be able to work to improve this process. But it's gonna take a little more communication.
Well, we need to get there, guys. To the administration, I'd like to see us get there. We need to reduce the amount. And I mean, I just think we have this ultra conservative approach to it. And it's just, I just think we're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table.
And you started with saying that Star Ohio was the right place to be. Then you changed your mind and that comment saying that wasn't.
No, I'm saying it is an
Trying to
option.
understand what you're trying to convey.
Star Ohio is a great option, but there are others.
Okay, but the others pay better. So why were you saying that everything should be in Star Ohio?
I was just choosing Star Ohio as the comparison.
Okay.
I'm not saying it has to be Star Ohio. I'm saying it can
Okay.
be, we talked about, there's CDs, there are other options. That Star Ohio is one good one, but there are others. We talked about laddering CDs at Fifth Third Bank, for example. That would be available. And so
Dan, really, you're frustrated, but I'm glad that you feel that the auditor's office is doing a good job now. That makes me happy, right? Because I feel like you were, with your letter, things were pretty different, but where do you expect the change to be? Like, how much are you wanting to see? Because you just challenged the administration saying that they need to get the information to Ginger and stuff and do better, right? But what are you trying to get to? Because I don't know that anything that you're trying to get to is gonna fix our finance problem. I'm assuming that's where this is coming from, right? The finances and our deficit budget,
Yeah.
we're trying to energize more income, is that?
sure, I mean, it's not, I'm not looking at the investment income to fix the budget. That's not, I mean, certainly $1 million a year helps, but it's not the end all.
So you want to see us increase by 1 million?
But not all have to go to the general fund anyway.
That's okay. Good question.
So I think, so we're good then, we're good with this, we tackled this monster and we're good.
Well, I certainly appreciate communication, and I hope it continues. I just feel like when I ask questions, it just the aggression is just correct, but so that this is a step in the right direction. But I guess I would like to see us improve this strategy to improve our yield, our investments. Like, that's what I would like to see.
So in 2026, you want to work on that?
In 2025.
One of the things in your request for Dan was the goal was to look at the investment policy. Is that correct? Rod, can you speak to council being involved in that process?
Well, the review that I did as well, I mean, the 1996 policy still is written so that it changes with all amendments that come down the line. And it's very wide open, as Ginger had said. And I don't know how difficult it is to send a new policy down to Columbus for approval. I would hope that we don't need to do that. So I think the policy we have now, discussions that I've had with the auditor, and looking at the various code changes over the year, are minimal, that policy is still good. And Ginger explained why that came out, all the problems that occurred. So in 96, here comes the requirement to follow that. Just everybody has to have one. So I don't see any problem with our policy. What I'm seeing is also, I mean, it sounds like Dan's making a suggestion of investment strategy and all that. That could happen over a cup of coffee. Nobody different, no different than somebody coming to me asking, Mark, can we change the sidewalk law? And what does it take to do it? Should we do it? Here's why not. Here's why we should. Same thing to me on a very small level. But there's another issue here. Council at the last meeting voted for the formulation of an ad hoc committee. Now, that membership may be on paper somewhere, but it hasn't been approved by a majority of council. I think the issue here, to me, is how is this going to be communicated twice a year, 4 times a year, and to who, of how we're doing, does the policy work, and how is it performing? And that way people can ask questions like Dan's asking, There just needs to be those answers, and maybe those answers weren't quick enough. Maybe the answers, maybe Jim's office thought he was giving answers, but they weren't being received. I don't know, because this is complicated stuff. I have a concern, and it's supposed to be an issue night council. Your current suggested makeup of an ad hoc committee to review where we're headed are the people who are upset with one thing, with the guy who's in charge and upset too. So I don't know how productive those meetings would ever be. So I have concern over that. I looked up, just out of curiosity, our appropriations committee definition here that the city puts out, and it says the appropriations committee provides recommendations to the full city council on all monetary issues requiring additional investigation and discussion that is practical for the full council to provide. So it does make sense to have some other group. I'm new here, full time. I'm on the income tax board, but I sit and I hear what Mary has to say. She shows us the numbers. She explains why some are down, why some are up, what the plan is and all that. People get to ask questions and the meeting's over. But I'm sure if she came with a problem, we would have to help figure out how we're gonna work that problem out. So to have some kind of review board that meets our policy says once a year right now. I don't think you need to change the policy to say we want to review it more. I would highly doubt that. I think you can say 2 times a year, 4 times a year, or on demand in case there's a financial problem. But I looked up what other cities are doing and near us and similar to us. And they do have committees, and they're made up of a diverse group of people. The appropriate type of people that review what's going on and make recommendations to council. One of them meets once a year. They call themselves the Investment Advisory Committee. It's the mayor, director of law, finance, the chair of a finance committee. They must have 2 electors of the city who shall be appointed by the mayor for a term of 2 years, approved by city council. And the electors appointed by that mayor shall have experience necessary to address financial issues. That kind of stuff makes sense to me, but this isn't law. This is just what other people do. This is what I found out for you. So I personally am not hearing that anything is drastically wrong with our investments. I'm hearing that how it's being communicated, how often it should be communicated, that we can fix. We can fix that here.
Robin, those examples that you had, were those statutory cities or were those charter cities?
It was a mix, but either way, it's a team of people, participating in the investment policies. So, and other ones it's through the auditor's office.
Well, I talked with
Recommendations
Jeff,
to council.
and one of the reasons, again, as I mentioned earlier, we do this review. It would be foolish for my office not to incorporate part of the investment review into the mid-year. Certainly the budget time be highlighted as well. If council, when they're reviewing the budget, it's in there as line items, it's part of the budget. So there's at least 2 opportunities there. And in terms of the actual methods being used, Ginger has the information that she shared with you in a paper form for all of you so that y'all have a copy. And on the back of that, we have an individual in the community. Many of you may know that Professor Skipson, his son Joff, is an investment broker and manager with Huntington Bank. Joff is now in charge. Joff Cindric is now in charge of this in the state of Michigan. And I contacted him because he had done business with me many years, and he provided the letter saying that the method we're using here and the way we're approaching this is the best practice method. We're doing it the right way. And that letter's on the back of that document going around right now. So we know we're doing it right. We know we're getting a good return. We know we can add information into a mid-year review and highlight it maybe a little heavier in the budget. Jeff, as chair of appropriations and finance, who's in charge of all financial matters, what else would you like to see?
Up for discussion. Thank you. Yes, Dan, sorry.
So I went online too, and I've looked at the city of Dublin's and the city of Harrisburg. And city of Dublin did an information request for asking for their investment policy. Now they are a charter city. But it was just interesting. They were talking about, just kind of comparing their investment policy objectives. They talk about safety of principal, market risk and credit liquidity. Then they get into yield return. Portfolios shall be managed to consistently attain a market rate of return throughout budgetary and economic cycles whenever possible, consistent with risk limitations and prudent investment management. The city shall seek to augment returns up to above the market average rate of return through the implementation of active portfolio management strategies. That's a very different perspective than putting 30% of our portfolio in a passbook savings account, very, here's some other,
I don't appreciate the mischaracterization of that, and it's rarely 30%. I don't know that it's ever been 30%. I know we did $7 million worth of investments less than 10 days ago. No, excuse me. And in looking at what they're doing there, our policy allows us to do, and we do actively what you're saying there. And the nice thing about the way we're doing it, when I go out and speak with brokers, if I want to invest $1 million, or as they did 10 days ago, $7 million, to get some things laddered out before the rates turn down, the brokers are doing a wonderful job of giving me the information I need to know, and they're bidding our investments in a manner that their markup in some cases is a half of 1 basis point. That's a cost. Because they want the volume, they want to do the business. Again, in terms of what you're talking about there, the investment portfolio allows for something like that. For that to happen, there has to be communication. There's nothing more that needs to be said. If the administration and our office are able to work out a way to communicate when the cash is needed for major expenditures on projects, we have a better understanding when capital projects are going to come to us. Much like you did the other day.
It's just the note taker things. You're good.
Yeah, much like we did the other day in appropriating $4 million for architectural fees. If we have an awareness of that, and when that cash is going to leave the city, we will naturally do that. It doesn't need to be addressed in the manner you're addressing it, because it's happening already. What we have is, for this improvement you're looking for, it's going to take these two sides of the table working out a method of communicating financial needs more effectively.
Yeah, I was just curious that it just made it sound like Jeremy is apparently responsible for all this. I was not aware of that. How often do you get something that you need money in large $1 million amounts after 2 o'clock that you didn't know about today?
On a routine basis, we run checks every week. Sometimes there's other things that come about. I have to juggle stuff around in order to make sure we make payments. So it just depends. Sometimes I can pull stuff out of Star Ohio, sometimes I can't. It depends on what's going on.
Okay, well, I didn't get much out of that comment, but I mean, I know that you can pull these out of some of these accounts at least on a daily basis and get the money that day. And I guess I was unaware from the things that we've passed at council are not then surprising you like what day they're coming. I mean, they're coming.
But they might not come for a year.
Okay, so you guys appropriated money for the design of this park. You appropriated the money, you haven't spent the money. You've taken it out of money you cannot appropriate for something else. But I don't know if those bills are gonna come out in January, they're gonna come out next week, if they're gonna come out next July, I have no idea. I can't prepare for something like that without knowing when that cash is actually gonna go out there.
So I can give you one example where it was done properly last year. And that was when the fire chief came to us, came to you guys and asked for a new fire truck. He said all in, all equipment with his bells and whistles. He didn't forget this time. Was $1.6 billion. So I created and invested a corresponding investment of $1.4 million, laddered out to the month before he expects to pick up that fire truck. So not only are we going to benefit from the fact that smaller amount of money is accruing the money to help pay that bill. We had the information, we were able to time it. So Ginger knows that the cash flow is in place to pay for that fire truck with Joshua to pick it up. That's what we need. You do that for us, and you will see a corresponding improvement in the return on the 1/5 your portfolio that we're talking about here. And keep in mind, when we talk about where that money's gonna be or how it's gonna be invested, there is going to be a corresponding cost offsetting that interest for all the other banking functions that we do. This isn't just checks. We have a huge amount of business banking that occurs day in and day out. Finish your question, go ahead.
I'm still just. I don't do city. Finance stuff, I understand that, but I find it hard to believe that you would get a bill that says, hey, it's due today. That you didn't know about yesterday.
It happens all the time. I know when certain things are paid. I know when debt needs to be paid. I know when payroll gets paid. Those are things I know. I don't necessarily know that when we have contractors payments set up for twice a month. I have no idea if the contractor's payment is going to end up being something that's gonna be $50,000 that week. Or if it's gonna be $2.5 million. I have no way of knowing that until those things show up in our office.
And we've never once come into a meeting and said we got a problem with Jeremy, because I think Jeremy's a win voice. It's a good job. I think he manages a lot. I think the grants he's managed has been phenomenal. But I can tell you, the interaction between our staff and the staff Jeremy has developed to perform the way he wants his office to perform is completely different than the way it was with the engineering staff that my predecessors communicated with, or that I communicated with in now. Same with the administration. That's not saying it's bad or it's wrong. There is a cost to how we do business. This is part of that cost. We want to improve or reduce that cost by improving a return. Then there's going to have to be an offsetting change in our process to make it work. And I'm sure I am not concerned that we can do it if that becomes a priority. What I am concerned about is the misconception that it lands in one person's lap and you don't understand it. And because of that, there's a thought that something's being done wrong here when there's something that's being done exactly right per the statutes and properly, getting a fair return. And ultimately, we're showing a willingness to improve that return. So acknowledge that that's going on, and let's move on and be positive.
Yeah, so this is kind of a statement or request to you guys. I mean, now this is 5 times that I've heard my department on that, on request of capital and all that, you just made the statement a little bit ago. If you don't understand, you don't understand. I didn't know this is something you guys wanted, but you were just saying right there that previous engineering departments did this, and well, with the communication from my end was not. So I don't appreciate that. Hold on, I'm talking right now. What I'm saying from that, if that's what you guys are needing and that's what you are wanting, I have never denied anything from you guys on. So I'm requesting from you guys, what do you want? When do you want it? How do you want it structured? I will never deny it. And me and you talked in the hallway once, you said something about it. And I told you at that time too, whatever you need, let me know. I will supply that stuff to you guys. Now understand, like you were saying, I can't tell. Sometimes they can pay $500,000 worth of asphalt and the next day it's $50,000. So there's going to be some leeway on that, but I will not deny you guys that information. So my request out of this, because this is some stuff I learned from it, is what do you guys are wanting? How soon do you want it? Pretty much give me the layout on that. We will get our managers and everyone trained on that so we can get you that information.
Thank you, Jeremy. One, I'd like to reinforce if I could, Jeremy, I get what I said was, I want to start off with, I think you're a wonderful engineer. I think you're doing a good job. Your department is allowing you to accomplish things you want to accomplish in your priorities. And I think that's a good thing. Listen, I'm not saying what's happened is wrong. I'm saying it's changed and it's different. And if the priority has changed, then we have no choice but to work it differently. That's what we're talking
But I'm hearing a willingness to adjust. So we're good.
Yes, I think there was a different request that we heard out of today's meeting than some of the prior requests. So I would state that we obviously want to work, and I know we've been trying to work on a financial projection for many months. We're working on changing all of our departments' next year's budget to a monthly budget so that we're tracking. Right now, I'm tracking on a monthly basis, but being able to say, hey, next month we expect whatever to hit. We can certainly do that. And I would share too, I hope you know, Ginger, we all really appreciate the work you're doing. And I don't think, I'll speak for me, I won't speak for the whole group, but I don't think anybody ever said something is being done improperly. What the questions were is, we're not getting information, and so we don't know how we are comparing to other communities. I think that it would be really beneficial to have a twice a year presentation like this, and then before budget. And not just compared to the county, because yeah, we might be doing compared to the county, but maybe the county's not doing it. And I'm not saying they're not, but we don't have that comparison information. And we don't live in it to be able to compile that comparison information. So if we could compare it to similar sized communities, just to better understand the return, because we all have a responsibility to the citizens to show that we are both protecting the dollars, obviously top priority, but also managing the finances well to maximize it for their benefit. And so thank you for making this presentation, because it was really helpful. I knew a lot of it, but hearing it again and understanding it better is really helpful.
So what I got out of this meeting is we have ways to improve, but I feel like maybe council needs to have a step in the middle that we are getting something. So you want to compare to other communities, but we don't know how other communities operate dynamically between the auditor's office and the administration. And we've learned here today that they need more information so they can invest things on a longer period to get a return, to maybe not have the $22 million 2-month reserve, right? So what can we establish through city council and our monthly report that maybe Jeremy lets, because we get a project like the fire truck, or we get a project that we're doing at the end of the year, we have to approve it, but we're not going to start it until the middle of next year. So it might be a larger project, water department or whatever, for instance.
Yeah.
So how do we have everybody on the same page with the new council coming in, so they understand, hey, they're communicating better, or we're gonna, if this dynamic works and council's happy with it, but council has to be happy with the dynamic as well.
So I think it makes sense for the administration to talk about our processes and figure out, because we could probably put something on the project sheets that have a projected timeline of some of these projects, right? We know, hey, a bunch of our contracts for road repavement and sewer lining or televising happen in certain months. We know we need to bolster cash around those periods of times. So I think that we can go back and put together a little bit of strategy in just that communication process.
But then put it into a report for us, so if they need to have a discussion.
I'm not
I
sure.
think that would be.
I feel like Dan does. I'm not here next year, neither are you.
Well,
But he has a feeling, he has a.
Ginger needs that.
True, well, that's what I mean, but
And so to see in order to figure out how.
I thought that was the
Right.
given. I just meant council having that information so they can say, hey, and then if the auditor is not investing those dollars and changing their tactics, then you can kick them in the butt and change things.
Right. The fire truck was a great example, but I think it's a very clean, linear example that we came early because of a lead time, costs were going up. We knew it was gonna be delivered in 28 months or whatever it was. So it gave the auditor a very specific timeline to invest that money. We knew when we were gonna spend it. I think to his point, the engineer's point, construction projects are very different when it comes to when cash has to be given out. So it's not as clean, but I think if we provide that information on when and how you want us to provide that, I think we can do our best to get a better cadence for that, but it's not always clean.
Understood. I know nothing's perfect, right? Especially in the contractor world. God knows.
And that's the reason why it says, it's not an exact science.
Understood. Here's what I would like. Dan, you like want to make one more
Well,
question?
I was talking about Dublin's policy now. So I
That's a trailer city.
understand,
It's not the same damn thing.
but it is.
No, it's not.
Well, if you.
No, it's not.
But the concepts apply.
Go ahead.
Okay, they talk about annually reviewing the portfolio with the finance committee. It's a good idea. I think we should do an annual portfolio. We're doing that now. Great. It talks about, a regular issued reports will include a monthly portfolio review and quarterly. So they have monthly and quarterly. It includes, the report also includes the average weighted yield. So Dublin is getting an average weighted yield in their monthly and quarterly reports. It talks about performance of the portfolio periodically monitored and compared to an appropriate benchmark. I think those are just good best practices that apply to charter and statutory. Thank you. And to me, to the mayor's point, the benchmark. I mean, here you have Star Ohio with 2,000 investments. You know, that's a pretty good indicator what the benchmark is, you know, and you're beating that benchmark on 18 of yours. The only one that's not beating it is the savings account. It's dragging the entire portfolio down.
I think we've talked about that. Derek? Maybe not.
Is it?
I mean, if we haven't answered the question on the cash balance, I think we've wasted a half hour. So are you feel good about why the cash balance is running around 20%?
I think we can improve, but yes, I mean, I think we can.
Understood that. I agree with you. That's what this whole conversation's been about. Beth, are you good with that?
Well, I still have a question. I don't know if I'm just not asking the question. I asked if you had a bill that comes in that has to be paid that day. Did it come out automatically? Is that how they're set up?
They are vouchered through the departments to our department. The outside departments get their bills. The outside departments prepare their vouchers, send them up to us for payment. We have to process them.
That day.
We don't process them that day. But I don't necessarily know right away until our accounts payable person gets through her processing when that amount's gonna come out.
Well, that I don't, but I just think seems like there should be a way. Doesn't even have to be Star Ohio. There's money markets, like say at Fidelity that hold US Treasury bonds, just wouldn't be like had to hold it for a term, you know, it's just a money market. And you can get money on those, you know, on a daily basis, wire it down. So as long as you knew you were gonna need it that day or the next day, or like, you know, on Tuesday, what bills you're gonna have to pay on Thursday. I just find it odd that there's a bill that just all said that no one knew was coming. And I might be missing that, but if I can understand that better, I think there's ways this balance could go down and be brought down as needed. And I guess I'd like at some point more, because that would solve the problem of feeling like we have a lot of money that's not invested.
What is our risk calculation? I mean, how you're doing things now?
Zero.
Okay,
Yeah,
So-
I think the 100.
so changing and putting more into one pot, or the example she gave, does that? Well, I guess the word risk wasn't right. How does it negatively impact your operation?
Again, this is about management of cash, proper balances, proper research.
So we have a proper, that's why, but I feel like
Based on where we're at today, the city auditor's office as a whole, the auditor, deputy auditor, our office is managing cash balances in an appropriate manner that we know we're in a position to pay any bill that comes down. We've had bills as big as $5 million in one day that we didn't know about, we had to pay.
Okay. With that, I would like to suggest that between myself and the mayor from the administration side and the auditor, that I'll put together a recommendation. I was gonna try to write something out tonight, but I'm not gonna do that right here and come back to council or to the appropriations committee first and let you all see that, and we'll go from there. Because I think, as what you had said, Dan, we can pick up annual reviews, quarterly, something like that, that would go into our recommendation for that. And I suspect, given this conversation, we can come up with something. Is that fair for you?
Sure.
Great. Beth?
I think our committee should make the recommendation.
We will.
But not-
I'm going to bring a recommendation to the committee, Holly, and then you can keep the 2 cents or more at that point. Okay,
2 cents is less than Dan's. Go ahead.
okay, fair enough. All right. Can you get through the budget in 15
Mid-year review?
minutes? Mid-year, not the budget, yes.
I will
Mid-year
personally call
review.
John. Tom will be downstairs within the hour.
No,
Yeah, I know. It won't take that long. We can get through it if you'd like.
all right, let's go.
Well, let's go. I'm gonna go a little bit fast since we're here. Everybody must sit down. We'll just use the slides and it might be easier than me walking around. All right, 2025. Okay, from the key performance indicators, there's a few things that stand out financially. One, we know the city's overtime is on the rise. The water loss, the administration's beating their goal. They're 18% target. I'm not sure what the EPA average is, but that's a good thing. At the airport, Jet A fuel sales. It's the primary thing for cash flowing the airport. They continue to be down substantially from their historic norms. Paving, we're not meeting the state auditor recommended goal or our goal at this point in time, but we know we're working hard to do that. But paving is important. It's a good benchmark. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And income tax past due collections are a lot less impactful on your revenues. In other words, we had a period where a lot of people hadn't paid. We contracted with the state auditor or the auditor's office, yeah, and they worked through a process to collect this work. So there are several financial aspects that aren't part of the KPIs, and we talked about them as we move through here. We all know the impact of the CARES Act and the federal money we got. It helped us not go into deficit for several years. But we're looking at high likelihood of some interest rate drops down the road. The Fed's going to wait as long as they possibly can. So I'm not an expert in that, but I don't anticipate them to either late in the year or when they change chairs, if they change chairs in the spring. Ohio put out, I hope you guys caught it. I'm going to stand up. I hope you guys caught it. Radio a couple weeks ago. In Ohio, you got to make $22.50 an hour. That's $46.8 to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in this state. That's not a little amount of money, and that's important that we keep that in mind. Here's one. Ohio Jobs says our county employment in June of 25 was 35,200 people employed in our county. In 2020, it was 39,200. We've lost 4,000 jobs in our county, or 4,000 employed workers in the last 5 years. Take note of that. That's something we need to be aware of. Ohio's been rated one of the worst states in the nation for pension funding. And they are talking about increasing pension obligations for police and general employees. Also, this came out for Ohio Job and Family Services a couple weeks ago. Overall, they project a continued decline in the growth rate of the state, an average across the state of about negative 1.63%. Toledo, which is outside our area, is negative 7.4%. So we're swimming against the current if we're going to continue to develop and improve this community. So be aware of that. But we have a lot of significant advantages. One, the city of Findlay is not in the EMS business, the trash business, or the golf course business, and we should never get into them. They're very expensive and they will hurt you bad on your budgets. The city of Findlay owns its water, sewer, and stormwater systems, and they are relatively debt-free. And if they remain so, that is a multi-generational benefit for our community. That is a big deal. And the realtor in the room is smiling, and I can see that because they know what it costs to pay for those things. The city of Findlay owns its parking enforcement enterprise, and that's a good thing. It was nice to be in a meeting the other day where they're working towards making sure we're cash flowing the parking functions. And the city of Findlay almost always pays cash for its capital improvement projects and is a beneficiary of millions of dollars in grants. That's important. It's special. It's unique, and it continues to be significant for us from a historical perspective. Okay, the state is about to put this out. This is the preliminary. We talk about this each year, but our finances are triggering cautionary warnings from the state auditor's office, both in terms of our drop in revenues and our capital investment. Again, we've talked about this in the past, but for the people in the room who haven't heard it, what the state is saying is, from strictly a book value perspective, they can't read into the detail of what we do and how we do it, but they say when you look at your assets on your books, the amount of depreciation associated with those, or the investment in those assets, that we are not investing enough money. They're saying that we're behind, and we continue to be behind year after year. Hence the example I like to use. It's not a criticism. This is an example. But when we talk about paving, the state auditor put out a prospectus on how you should be thinking about paving. It says basically you should be paving 6.6% of your streets every year. So if we have 475 lane miles of improved roads, and this was numbers from a couple of years ago, 6.6% is 31.4 lane miles. It's very expensive to pave, but if you ever drive around Toledo, you know what it's like when you don't keep it up. So it's good that we have paving projects. It's good that we're getting grants. It's good that we're doing the things we're doing, but that is a good example of what the state auditor is talking about when they're talking about us needing to invest in capital and keeping it up. Economic factors. Our population has dropped again, according to the US Census Bureau. We're getting closer and closer to that 40,000 number. Median household income has creeped up a little bit to 57.3 as compared to the state at 69. And the per capita income has creeped up a little bit at 37 compared to 39 at the state. And the median home value has gone up in value, as we all know, which is good. However, our persons in poverty in our community has gone up. Our 3-year income tax and 5-year income tax has gone down, and I expect this to continue to go down. That average growth is going to drop significantly. Our growth rate will probably drop to about, on a historic average, somewhere around 2%. Hopefully on the upside of 2%, not the downside, but we got to keep that in mind. We need to see that number go up. And as we get development, we need to get the type of development and the type of jobs that give people big raises and big bonuses so that our income tax goes up. This chart I show you every year, and it's very telling. This is your percent of employment growth in your community. I think I said a few years ago, Findlay is on basically a 7-year cycle. We grow a little, we grow a little, we grow a little, and then we have a big loss. Findlay Industries was a big loss. Microsoft was a big loss. Most recently, half of Cooper Tire, big loss. So again, we grow a little, but look what's happened. Our shrink, our reduction in growth in employment, or actually loss of employment, is increasing more frequently. So the trend is down. Why is that important? That's important because this is what growth in a healthy, this is micropolitan, which is this line, the green and the yellows, and metropolitan is the reds and the blues. This is what healthy growth looks like in very strong economies based on the micropolitan and the metropolitan designations. This is what in the weaker economies, what growth looks like. What does our growth look like? That's what it looks like. So that's healthy growth. That's our growth. I'm going to constantly, my entire career here, encourage this body, this council, to use your thoughts, your abilities, the things you can do with zoning, the things you can do in encouraging economic development to push us to grow our employment and to grow this line in a way that more so represents that line.
Where is this data? Where is that from?
This is from Jobs and Family Services.
What in the last one is it?
I'll cover that in a minute. How will Findlay work towards improving its city income tax revenue growth rate? There's a question for you. Again, flood mitigation is still out there. We're making strides there. We still haven't changed the map, so there is a cost burden for your property owners in your community. And the city of Findlay has a standing strategic planning committee, as you guys know. I'm saying this committee needs to look at creating a citywide long-term view of what types of businesses should be recruited, purposely recruited into this community. It also needs to focus on contingency planning. We don't have financial contingency in place. So we're talking about improving our investments. I'm going to encourage you to also improve your contingency planning. So when this thing turns, if this revenue continues to shrink, as we go through what this new economic environment looks like with this new president, what he's trying to do in changing our country, we need to be prepared when that cash flow gets tight, if that happens, and decide how you're going to do it. Have a general plan. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to do every part, but have a general plan, the direction, what your priorities are, and give us guidance as administrators so we know where to put our focus. City income tax. This is concerning to me. Today is running 1.8 million below the projected $32.3 million projection that I put in place for you at the beginning of the year. Withholding, individual withholdings down 7%. Or excuse me, the regular withholding. Individual receipts are up a little bit. There's some reasons for that when you talk to Mary. I don't think it's not something that's going to consistently grow that way, but it's good that we're seeing this year. But look at business receipts year to year, down 60%. And remember what I said when we did the budget. I said we talked with Mary, worked with Mary. She does a wonderful job. Initially, the thought was we were going to see about $6 million in business receipts this year. We're on track for an 84. I'm hoping we get 4 because if we don't get 6, you're gonna add the difference up here. So if we don't get 4, that goes from 1.8 to 3.8 down. So be aware, that's what's going on. We need to watch these numbers closely. You'll know towards the end of the year, third quarter, October, as to how your receipts are doing. General fund overall, your revenue's down 3%. Of course, the income tax is down. General fund revenue is going to be down. I pulled the subsidies out of these percentages. So I wanted it to be a fair look at the revenues year to year. So your revenue is up 1% in streets. It's down about 5.5% in airport. WPC, that's your sewer. It's up just a skosh. Water up 2% and parking up 3%. So it's a mixed, nothing real bad there, but be aware that's where you're at. How am I doing, Jeff?
In about 5 minutes, 10
Okay.
minutes max.
I'll take the 10. I'll take the 10. Okay. No, we'll get through it. Okay. Your original 2025 general fund revenue budget was 35.7 million. That was the projection. The potential operational deficit currently now, based on how the revenue's coming in, is somewhere between $5 and $8 million, not counting the de-appropriation that the mayor has sent to you here tonight's package. So that's a wide range, but again, we don't know what's going to happen with that business net profits tax when it comes in later this year. Your mid-year receipts are running about 47% of budget. Zoning is up 10%. Engineering, their fees and whatnot are down 16%. I'm curious, I've never studied it before. I'm assuming engineering lags zoning. So as they come into zoning and get the permits and do some of that stuff, you'll see some of that on the other end, but we'll see. That's my hypothesis. We're going to try it out and see what happens. Hotel motel tax down 11%. Why? I can tell you why. If you have permanent residents in hotels like we have a lot of, you don't pay tax. So there's a direct negative impact on our revenue based on the number of people living in hotels permanently, or what appears to be permanent on paper. Real estate tax is right on budget, and I work with the county on that. They send a number over, so that doesn't change much. And your local government's pretty much right on target, and recreation's down a skosh. So as of today, your projected year and carry forward in the next year is projected about 6.8 million above your minimum reserve balance. So we're still ahead of that, but we're eating into that cash based on the path flow. One thing you got to be aware of, health insurance. Health insurance benefit is one of your best tools in hiring and retaining experienced quality employees. We just had some conversation about that. The fellow from Risk Strategies, Ben, came in and talked to you folks. You're running on average cost per employee 16.1% less than other Ohio cities. That's a phenomenal place to be. So it's good. The plan was revamped in 2012. At that time, there were 857 belly buttons on the plan. Now there's 890. So we've even added employees since the revamping of the health plan, and we're still in a strong position with that plan in terms of the costs and how they're being managed and what's happening with us. Debt. I love it. This is in your CAFR, and I pulled this out. I don't normally give you guys, or ACFR, I don't normally give you guys ACFR numbers, but I like this one. Since 2011, that's the year our debt, and I'm not claiming responsibility for this, by the way, it's a great benchmark. Our debt was $1,106 per person, per capita, 4.5% of your personal income. Today, you're down to $116 per capita, 0.31% of personal income. Very strong position to be in for a community our size. Current debt policy allows for calling of our 2033 bonds in 2026. So that's something I will work with Andrew Brossard on in terms of doing the calculations and whatnot. Initially, when they did the calculations, this was a couple of years ago before Andrew was here, we were looking at, we think, if we pay those off early, if we're in a cash position to do it, hope we are, it's under $4 million, I believe, or about $4 million, but we're looking at a savings of $450,000. Something to add to improving our position and improving our cash flow. But a good thing to consider, it'll be reviewed. I'm assuming it'll be part of the Appropriations former Finance Committee discussion. Liability insurance. We contract every year with an outside firm to review our insurance to make sure we have the coverage we think we have to make sure it covers the things it's supposed to cover. And to make sure if there's any recommended changes that we do them. The same group's doing that today that did it 20 years ago. They do a phenomenal job. This report, it's the company's insurance audit, independent risk management insurance council. They issue a report and there are executive summaries. So if any of you have a personal interest in reviewing that, you can do it. One of the things I like to point out though is our cyber theft limits are $3 million. Something has changed this year, and that is the state has come out with a cybersecurity program, and it's required by law that we adopt a program and that the program is appropriate for our needs. And the state is auditing on it. He started that process this year, and it's going to be a very in-depth, very enhanced audit when they look back on 2025 moving forward in the spring. So be prepared for that. But the point here is twofold. One, there's now state requirements we're going to have to conform with. And two, $3 million doesn't sound like a lot. And the state auditor has also come out and said he doesn't want people paying ransoms. That's why they put the program in place. The point program is to make sure as an entity, we don't end up in a position where we have a ransom to pay to cyber criminals. Also, we still have our self-insurance fund. I think we're up to $2 million now. That's an old slide. I apologize for that. I missed that edit. But as I've said time and time again, you have no insurance for environmental risk and liability. So be aware of that as you're acquiring these properties, as you're looking forward. If there is risk, and risk isn't just health. Environmental risk can cover a lot of different things. So be aware the insurance companies exclude it. They exclude it specifically and intentionally. Best practices. For the benefit of the new council folks coming in and the existing ones that are going to be around next year, the role of the finance officer under best practices, the Government Finance Officers Association, is the finance officer should be a lead or key participant in the analysis of economic and fiscal impacts, as well as the risk uncertainties associated with proposed economic development plans, strategies, or individual projects. My office is supposed to be integrated into part of that thinking, part of that process, part of that committee work. I hope you utilize this because we are more than willing to be part of it. Economic importance. I'm coming back to some of the questions. Economic strength, as defined by Polycom, who analyzes cities much in the way the site selection does, but they do it for sustainability, is the long-term tendency for an area to consistently grow in size and quality. Finley has been sliding by this analysis and it should not be ignored. We are #1 in site selection for 11 years running. However, Finley is Finley growing in a sustainable manner to retain our current tax rate and our current level of services? That is the question you should be asking. What does Polycom say about Finley's growth? Based on the numbers, we went from being in the top 50 of the best micropolitans to in the anywhere from, well, it started at 100, we slid down this year to 179. So we're in the mid-range. We're not the best. Again, sustainability, the type of growth. I talk about tiered businesses at one point. And to not dwell on that, let's go to a different level. And I want to thank the income tax department for this. They converted to recording their collections by NAICS code. This is huge. So when a business comes in, are they paying tax? Manufacturing is these two areas right here. The most of your income tax comes from manufacturing businesses. Let me say that again. Most of your income tax comes from manufacturing. And then you got to love, these are various professional services in healthcare. It's a strong component of our tax, which is good to hear. Everything from professional contractors, insurance, just professions and healthcare, good businesses. We do have a little bit of an uptick in unclassified, and Mary said she's going to get back to me on that, and we'll know a little bit more and figure that out. So we'll see, we'll identify what we can, or she will, and she's wonderful about that. But here's what I want to point out. Almost 50% of your developed ground in this community is gone to transportation, distribution, and warehousing. There's your revenue from it, right there. It's a blip. It's almost nothing. I'm not saying they're bad businesses. I'm not saying the people in this community that sold that ground didn't make good money and put something in there that they felt good about. But what I am saying is, The revenue that's coming in from it, from a city perspective, isn't helping you, and it's not gonna pay for cops and firemen, streets, water, sewer. Not long term. It doesn't work, and it's half of your development. Again, I share this with you so you can be intentional about your consideration when you're thinking about things you're approving and the things you're supporting and the things you're doing in this community. The other one that caught me here, and I just thought about it this year. What do they say? What do they say when people come in? They say, oh, we're gonna get all that money from the construction, the big businesses. There it is. It's a blip. Is it more than a blip? I don't know. So that gives, I'll skip this one since Jeff's gonna wind me in. The income tax again is underperforming, but let's keep in mind, we'll see what happens in October. That'll be a big key for you. General fund carry forward balance projections have dropped due to the current spending. Income tax year-end performance will have a direct impact on that carry forward number. The narrow focus on investments I'm concerned about. The council really needs to focus on what we're doing with the budgets, the deficit, and with economic development issues. I think you need to shift to the more macro issue here, and I think that'll benefit us all. And there's going to be legislation come from my office for the severance payout reserve. We have people who are retired and we got to pay them, but fortunately you're well funded in your reserve. You guys were wise to do that. Cash balances have been strong. There's the transparency site. All the numbers are out there, whether it be payroll, expenses, revenues. You can look at them each and every day on FinleyOhioFinances.com. And did I miss anything in that slide I skipped? I think so. There you go. Any questions?
Anybody else?
Where was that one slide, the data from?
Oh,
And I would just note that the Polycom report is looking at the sustainability of continued growth. So the likelihood of the same level of continued investment, which the more you see it, the less likely of it continuing. Is what that is stating. And that warehousing and logistics support manufacturing. That's why they, that warehousing.
you know, that's the last comment I guess I would make with regard to that, because I think it's very important. What we talk about is tiers. You want high level, high dollar manufacturing that is where your workers are making $50 to $75 to $100 an hour building large things. That there have to be businesses under them doing components that contribute to the large item that you're building. So in auto harnesses for lighting or for components that we've had the component maker. We have a lot of the component makers. We need the big one that puts them together in a manner that grows the community in the way this body and this community wants to see the growth. And then warehousing and distribution, yeah, they do support those things, but we don't want to start there. Let's not start middle. Let's start higher. Let's get up higher on that economic ladder. I think that would be a good thing.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. Any other questions? Questions over there? Very good. I want to, for the committee, I want to go back to our previous topic real quick. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend Appropriations Committee Chair will bring back a recommendation for an investment review process to the committee. I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
Would it make sense, Jeff? Not that you're not going to do it in a timely fashion, but would it be appropriate to add a timeline?
I would love to have a timeline. What kind of timeline, Mayor, would you?
Well, what do you think is appropriate by the first meeting in October?
Oh. Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
gives us 3
October.
meetings and hopefully before that, but I think just having a timeline would be appropriate.
Adding by October 1st to the end. Thank you, Mayor. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Anybody, I don't think we need a motion or a recommendation on the mid-year review, unless somebody has something specific they'd like to say in that regard. We'll just let that go. We'll just have no recommendation there. With that, I want to thank everybody who was back there. I hope it was interesting and entertaining for the last hour and a half. And with that, we'll bring the Appropriations Committee to an adjournment. Thank you. See everybody downstairs in 20 minutes.